As dusk fell, a young rhino trapped in a deep pit cried out, drawing the attention of nearby lions. Just as they prepared to attack, an unexpected figure charged towards the pit. Onlookers held their breath, stunned by the sudden rescue attempt. Who could this daring rescuer be? The scene was tense with urgency and mystery, promising a rescue no one could have foreseen. In the heart of Kruger National Park, a young rhinoceros, driven by curiosity, ventured away from the safety of his herd. Unfamiliar with the perils of the vast plains he now tread upon, his adventurous spirit soon led him into a precarious situation. As he explored, his attention was caught by an intriguing scent that seemed to beckon him deeper into uncharted territory. Oblivious to the dangers, he followed the allure, his massive body moving with an awkward grace typical of his kind. Suddenly, the ground beneath him betrayed his trust. Without warning, the earth gave way, crumbling under his weight. With a startled cry, he tumbled down a steep slope, the world around him blurring into a chaotic whirl of dust and fear. Every second stretched out as he spun helplessly, the light from above narrowing into a dim circle. Dazed and confused, he lay there momentarily stunned, trying to comprehend the sudden shift from freedom to entrapment. As the dust settled around him, his massive frame ached from the ordeal, each breath sending a ripple of pain through his bruised body. With growing apprehension, he assessed his surroundings. The walls of the pit loomed high and steep, offering no hope for an easy escape. His first attempt to jump reached only the cruel reminder of his imprisonment. The reality of his plight sank in. He was alone, trapped, and vulnerable. His thoughts turned to his herd, his family. Would they notice his absence? Could they hear him if he called out? Gathering his strength, he let out a trumpeting cry, the sound echoing off the pit's walls, carrying his plea for help across the savannah. As his call faded into the distance, he listened intently, hoping against hope for any sign of rescue. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only with the rustling of leaves and the gentle breeze above. With renewed vigor, he paced the confines of the pit, each step a mixture of determination and trepidation. His massive frame scraped against the unyielding earth as he repeatedly tried to scale the steep walls. Each failed attempt saw him sliding back to the pit's dusty floor, his hooves digging futile furrows in the dirt. Undeterred, he charged at the walls again and again, his grunts and snorts punctuating the still air. The sounds of his struggle were desperate, filled with both the raw power of his species and the vulnerability of his situation. He knew he had to keep trying, driven by a primal urge not just to survive, but to return to his herd. In between his attempts, he would stop to listen, his ears perked, rotating to catch any sound that might hint at salvation. His heart raced each time the breeze carried distant noises, but hope waned with each realization that no help was coming. Yet, in moments of exhaustion, leaning against the cool earth, he contemplated his fate, his mind grappling with the isolation and the stark reality that he might not escape. Fueled by both fear and hope, he lifted his head high and let out another series of loud, pleading trumpets. Help me, his cry seemed to say, each call a beacon for any who might hear. Above the pit, the landscape remained serene, almost mocking his plight with its tranquility. Yet, unbeknownst to the young rhino, his cries had not gone unheard. Far from the pit, the faintest echo of his distress stirred the attention of distant members of his herd. Their heads lifted in unison, a silent communication passing between them as they began to gather, compelled by the familiar voice of their kin echoing across the plains. As the echoes of the young rhino's desperate cries began to dissipate, the distant herd stirred into action. With a sense of urgency, the rhinos coalesced, their bulky forms casting long shadows on the golden savanna as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The alpha, a massive beast with a battle-scarred hide, led the charge, guiding the herd toward the source of the distress calls. The ground trembled under their collective weight, each step a testament to their resolve to save their stranded kin. As they moved, the tranquility of the evening was pierced by a more sinister sound. The low, menacing growls of predators drawn by the prospect of an easy meal. The lions, ever opportunistic, the pride had been lingering in the tall grass, their keen senses attuned to the vulnerability of the lone rhino. The pride moved stealthily, their bodies low to the ground as they coordinated their approach. The leader of the pride, A formidable lioness known for her cunning signaled to her companions. Their eyes glinted in the twilight, each flicker of silent communication helping them encircle the area where the rhino's cries originated. As the rhino herd neared the pit, their pace slowed, the gravity of the situation setting in. They fanned out, forming a defensive perimeter around the pit. The alpha rhino peered down, his eyes meeting those of the young rhino, whose fear was now mingled with a glimmer of hope. Stay strong. We are here. The alpha's deep, rumbling calls seemed to convey. The young rhino responded with a weak trumpet, his energy sapped but his spirits buoyed by the sight of his herd. But as the rhinos assessed the situation, the lions made their presence known. A sudden roar sliced through the evening air, startling the herd. The lions emerged from the shadows, their forms sleek and menacing against the dimming light. The herd tensed, realizing that their rescue mission had just become a standoff. The alpha rhino positioned himself between the lions and the pit, his massive body a barrier to the predators. The other rhinos shuffled nervously, their size and strength formidable but their numbers fewer than the encroaching lions. As the sun set, casting a fiery glow over the savanna, the air filled with the sounds of snorting rhinos and growling lions, each group wary but prepared to fight. The standoff at the pit had escalated into a tense encounter, with the young rhino's fate hanging in the balance. As night approached, the question remained. Could the herd fend off the predators long enough to devise a rescue, or would the lions seize their moment to strike? As dusk settled over the savanna, the tension around the pit where the young rhino was trapped thickened palpably. The lions, emboldened by the cover of twilight, tightened their circle, each step calculated to intimidate. Their roars reverberated through the cool evening air, a chilling reminder of their lethal prowess. The rhinos, recognizing the escalating threat, responded with their own formidable display. The alpha stamped the ground powerfully, sending a cloud of dust into the air. His deep, resonant trumpets challenged the lions' roars. The rest of the herd echoed his defiance, their collective trumpeting a desperate attempt to deter the predators. But despite their size and strength, anxiety coursed through the group. They were protectors, yet the pit's steep walls made a direct rescue impossible. Meanwhile, the young rhino at the bottom of the pit felt a surge of despair. Despite his herd's proximity, their inability to reach him compounded his fear. He pressed his massive body against the cold earth, trying to make himself as small as possible. The sounds of the conflict above seemed distant, muffled by the walls of his earthen prison. The lions, sensing the herd's hesitation, advanced with increased confidence. The lead lioness, with a calculated gaze, directed her pride to spread out around the perimeter of the pit. They moved with lethal grace, their eyes fixed on the trapped rhino, each twitch of their tails signaling their readiness to pounce. As the first lion leaped toward the edge of the pit, the alpha rhino charged, his massive head lowered. The impact of his horn against the ground near the lion was a clear warning, the vibration sending a message of power and threat. The lion recoiled, its attack thwarted, but not deterred. The other lions growled in frustration and anticipation, their collective focus undeterred by the rhino's display. The standoff intensified as more lions joined, their encirclement growing tighter. The rhinos, realizing they were outnumbered and at a disadvantage due to the terrain, began to retreat step by step. Their retreat was reluctant, filled with anxious glances back at the young rhino, who was now emitting soft, despairing cries. With each backward step the rhinos took, the lions advanced, their confidence growing as the space between predator and prey shrank. The air was thick with the scent of tension, the only sounds the crackling of dry grass underfoot, the desperate trumpeting of the rhinos, and the menacing growls of the lions. As the night deepened, the fate of the young rhino seemed ever more precarious, hanging in the balance as the circle of predators closed in. The night air was charged with tension as the lions encroached closer, their eyes fixed on the young rhino trapped in the pit. Just as the situation seemed dire, a low rumble rolled across the savanna, distinct yet distant. It grew steadily, a deep resonant sound that vibrated through the ground. The lions paused, their ears twitching toward the approaching disturbance. Out of the darkness, the silhouettes of elephants emerged, their massive forms becoming more distinct as they approached with deliberate, heavy steps. The leader of the herd, a colossal bull with long, formidable tusks, led the charge. His trunk lifted high, and he let out a thunderous trumpet that echoed across the plains, a clear signal of his intent to intervene. The elephants lined up, their numbers impressive, forming a formidable wall between the lions and the pit. The sudden arrival of these giants shifted the dynamics dramatically. The lions, momentarily taken aback by the sheer size and assertiveness of the elephants, hesitated, their growls subdued into low murmurs as they assessed the new threat. The young rhino at the bottom of the pit felt a surge of hope. His eyes widened as he watched the elephants assert their presence. The sight of these unexpected allies reignited a spark of hope within him. Despite his exhaustion, he found himself standing, his stance emboldened by the support from above. The elephants advanced a few steps closer, their trunks swinging and ears flapping aggressively. Another loud trumpet from the lead elephant resonated through the night, underlining their demand for the lions to back off. The lions, now outnumbered and outmatched, began to retreat slowly, their eyes still locked on the pit, but their bodies moving away. As the lions withdrew, the elephants continued their protective stance. A few of them positioned themselves directly at the edge of the pit, their trunks reaching down as if to reassure the young rhino. The young rhino's fear began to be replaced by relief as he realized the tide had turned in his favor. The elephants had not only disrupted the hunt, but had also instilled a renewed sense of hope for rescue. As the night wore on, the elephants maintained their watch, a bastion of strength and protection. Their solidarity was a stark contrast to the waning threat of the lions. Under the cloak of night, the elephants formed a steadfast ring around the pit, their towering figures like sentinels against the backdrop of the starlit savanna. The lions, though hesitant, continued to circle the perimeter, their eyes glinting in the darkness, searching for any sign of weakness. However, the sheer presence of the elephants, unwavering and imposing, formed a barrier too daunting for the predators to challenge. As the hours passed, the night deepened, and the air grew cooler. The moon cast a pale light over the savanna, illuminating the tense standoff. The elephants shifted occasionally, their large feet rustling the dry grass, but they remained ever attentive, their ears flapping softly to catch any sound of movement from the lions. The lions, realizing that the elephants were not merely temporary guardians but a formidable force through the night, began to lose interest. Their movements became less frequent. Inside the pit, the young rhino watched the scene unfold with a growing sense of security. As dawn approached, the first hints of light crept across the horizon, signaling the end of the night's vigil. The elephants remained alert, their protective circle as steadfast as it had been throughout the dark hours, ensuring that when help did arrive, they would still be there to greet it. As the first rays of dawn painted the savanna with hues of gold and pink, the distant sound of a helicopter broke the morning's calm. The rumbling grew louder as it approached, signaling the arrival of the park rangers. The elephants raised their heads, their large ears flapping slowly as they assessed this new development. The helicopter hovered above the scene, the downdraft stirring up dust and leaves around the gathered animals. The rangers inside communicated via radio, coordinating their approach with care to avoid startling the elephants and further distressing the trapped rhino. "Prepare the winch and ready the tranquilizers," one ranger instructed over the noise, his voice calm and deliberate. As the helicopter landed at a safe distance, the rangers quickly disembarked, carrying equipment and medical supplies. They approached cautiously, giving wide berth to the protective circle of elephants. Lead to the ranger raised his hand in a calming gesture as he spoke softly to the herd, acknowledging their crucial role in guarding the rhino through the night. The elephants, recognizing the rescue efforts, slowly backed away, though they remained close enough to intervene should the need arise. The young rhino watched warily from the pit, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and anticipation. The sight of humans was both alien and comforting, as he associated them with both captivity and care. The rangers set to work immediately, assembling a portable crane next to the pit. They extended the arm over the pit and carefully lowered a sturdy harness. "We need to be gentle but quick," the lead ranger directed, his eyes never leaving the rhino. They carefully maneuvered the harness around the rhino, securing him with straps that would support his weight without causing injury. With everything in place, the crane whirred to life, gently lifting the rhino from his earthen prison. The elephants watched intently, their trunks occasionally reaching out toward the rhino, as if to offer further reassurance. As the rhino was brought to the surface, the rangers immediately tended to him, checking for injuries and administering necessary first aid. The lead vet injected him with vitamins and antibiotics to prevent infection from his wounds and to bolster his weakened condition. Finally, on solid ground, the rhino's legs trembled under him, but he managed to stand, his breathing heavy but steady. The elephants, seemingly understanding that the crisis was over, trumpeted softly. The rangers, satisfied with the successful rescue, began packing their equipment, casting grateful glances toward the elephants. "Thanks to these gentle giants," one ranger murmured to another. The rhino, now free and slowly regaining his strength, remained under the watchful eyes of his rescuers and the protective herd, a testament to the extraordinary efforts of both man and beast. With the morning sun climbing higher in the sky, the young rhino, now safely rescued from the depths of the pit, took his first tentative steps on the familiar ground of the savanna. The rangers watched closely as he moved slowly toward his herd, which had remained nearby, their presence a comforting constant throughout his ordeal. The reunion was a quiet affair, marked by gentle nudges and soft snorts, expressions of relief and welcome that needed no translation. The lead ranger, observing the scene, turned to his colleague, reflecting on the events. "Every rescue gives these animals a fighting chance, but seeing different species come together like this, it's extraordinary," he said, his voice imbued with a mix of professional satisfaction and genuine wonder. His colleague nodded in agreement, their shared experiences in the field often underscored by the unpredictable nature of wildlife and the surprising moments of interspecies empathy. The rhino, feeling the familiar touch of his herd, began to relax. His strength was returning, and with it, a sense of normalcy. The trauma of the fall, the fear of predators, and the uncertainty of rescue were now behind him. He had survived, supported by the unexpected alliance of elephants and the timely intervention of humans. This incident, though harrowing, had also revealed the resilience of the animal kingdom and the crucial role of conservation efforts. As the rangers prepared to leave, they made a final check of the area, ensuring that the rhino was stable and the herd was ready to move on. "We'll keep monitoring this area, make sure he fully recovers," one ranger mentioned to the other as they packed up their gear. "Who knows? Maybe this young one will grow up to lead the herd one day." With the departure of the rangers, the herd slowly began to migrate toward the grazing areas, the rhino walking steadily among them. The elephants, having ensured no further threats lingered, also turned to leave, their massive forms disappearing into the brush. The savanna resumed its peaceful rhythm, the extraordinary events of the night giving way to a new day full of potential and promise for the young rhino, now a symbol of survival and resilience in the face of adversity. As dawn breaks over the savanna, our young rhino, once in peril, now stands safe, thanks to a heroic rescue by a herd of elephants. This tale of unexpected bravery and interspecies solidarity is truly heartwarming.